For some of us, the story of our life is very public. Everybody knows about it. And yet, for some of us, the story of our life is very private. And we don't share it with very many people, if any. Tonight, my hope is that our guest will encourage you that no matter where you are on your journey in life, that you would know that there's hope, no matter what you're going through. Hey, Paul, I'm so glad that you joined us tonight. This is so great to have you here. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do?
Sure. I work at Living Word Temple. It's a North End church in the core of our city. And I'm the lead pastor there. So I do a lot of preaching, teaching, and pretty much everything else that you can possibly think of doing in the North End. When you sign a contract that says, and a duty is assigned as others, be very careful. Because we move furniture.
Is that right?
We do tons of hospital visits. We drive people up north.
Wow.
So it's always something new and exciting there.
Where is it located?
We are on 467 Manitoba.
Okay.
So pretty much if you know where Selkirk and Maine is, we're really close to that. And we're one of the numerous churches that's doing homeless Indigenous work. So it's the best ministry, but it's probably the hardest ministry.
It is, eh?
Yeah.
So what, for people that maybe don't live in Winnipeg, what makes the North End a tough area for some people?
Well, addiction is a huge concern in our world, but in the North End, it's even worse. So addiction leads to all kinds of heartache and hurt, but it's not really the core issue. It's just this. It's what happens because of the core issues, which there's just a tons of abuse, deep heartache that we know only God can help with, but we try to be His hands and feet.
What have you seen happen since you have moved into that area? Like you personally, have you seen any change through what you've been doing through Living Word?
For sure. Like we have testimonies which are hope stories where, we know if we weren't there, some of these folks just wouldn't know where to go or what to do. We have great fun stories and we have really sad stories. The stories where we're working with moms getting their kids back. And, it's our fifth round of like helping them through counseling, getting them into an addiction center, getting them clean. They come out and then go back into this cycle of addiction and hurt and heartache and lose their children. And so it's really, really hard. I mean, that's the hard part. But when you see the kids get back with their parents, it's really amazing. Like it's really quite something. We're connected to prisons. So we have some great stories of people coming out of prison who are connected to people who used to come. They're back in prison again, but the new people come and they're like, hey, does so-and-so still go here? We're like, no. Oh, he told me to come here. And I was like, well, where did you meet him? Oh, I was in Stoney. So it's like, wow. And, and they're getting their lives transformed. And, and so it's a really different place to do ministry. It's a really raw place to do ministry. So, but it's kind of like the way I am. Yeah.
Well, does that rawness connect with you? Personally?
I think so. I've had, I made a mess of my life early on, and God saved me from myself and from my addictions and my struggles. And so I can really relate with the folks who are struggling with life because of bad choices, whether it's their bad choices or people around them making really bad choices. Like I said, abuse is just rampant in our neighborhood. So I can relate to it. And I think because of what I've gone through, it really helps me, understand folks in our neighborhood and be able to resonate with their stories and their struggles. So,
So what kind of hope what happened for you in your own personal life? When you talk about that, connecting with that rawness, can you talk about that journey at all?
Yeah, I've recently really began to understand that if we don't accept our own brokenness, so if you're watching or if we're just talking, if we don't accept our own brokenness, if we don't realize that we're all broken, if we think just the North End people are broken, then we're almost out of reach for God to help us, because if we're not broken, then He doesn't need to fix us or get involved in our lives and heal the brokenness. And so because of my story of brokenness, of addiction and drugs and alcohol, it really opened up the doors for me to have a better understanding of what that brokenness feels like, not just looks like, because I think we all understand brokenness. We see it in Winnipeg, we see it all around us, but to actually know what it feels like and allow that to be your guide towards helping people instead of judging them, just loving them where they're at, it really changes the way you work with people and talk with people and really love people.
Do you ever find that your journey is an encouragement to other people that maybe feel that there's no hope for them, that you can share with them what you've been or what you have gone through and how your life has changed?
Absolutely. Like, if you just run into me at the church, you just think, oh, he's one of the pastors, and I'll preach a sermon and they'll come to me and ask for advice. And then if I share something like, I'm divorced, I've been through some serious pain, or I've been sober for 23 years, they go, what? And I say, well, yeah. I said, when I was 21 years old, I was picked not to live till I would be 25 because of the wild life that I lived and the way that I viewed life and treated myself. And that really, you can just see the person kind of, it changes from like talking to the pastor to, oh, okay, this guy gets it. This guy really understands. Yeah. And it just changes the whole opportunity that I have to help them.
Yeah, for sure. What kind of changes have you seen in, like in the area of your ministry in the North End? Like I was told that you are doing lunches like in the community. Is that the case? Like things like that. What kind of community things are you guys doing?
Well, during this season of COVID, we really shifted gears. I think everybody had to really think about what am I doing for my community? How is my community doing? And so we had a lunch program. We realized through talking with some of our teachers and some of our kids that a lot of kids don't have lunch. Something that we would just take for granted in the south end of the city. We would just think, well, everybody has lunch or lunch money. But our kids, lots of them were hungry, and the teachers told us, if they get lunch, they learn in the afternoon. If they don't, they might as well not be there. And so we started a lunch program, and we're feeding kids lunch, and it really got us in touch with daily opportunities to meet emergency physical needs. Like the kids come and they get a Bible verse, and they get loved by our staff, and they get treats for learning different verses and taking part in the Christianese part of our lunch program. But they get food, and it's really important. So when COVID hit, we just took it to the next level, and we couldn't do all the worldwide missions that we were doing, and we couldn't do all the up north outreach that we were doing. So we really focused on our neighborhood, and then we saw an even greater need for food and an even deeper need for relationship, like real relationship. Yeah.
So how has your life changed? Because I know that you had pastored in the south end of the city, and then you go to the north end. How has life changed for you personally as you go into a different area of town, and maybe the needs are different?
Yeah, the needs are very different. I enjoyed my time at a South End church. I was a youth pastor, really enjoyed it. But one day there was a suicide up north. And for those of you that don't know much about Canada or our First Nations folks, suicide is an epidemic up north. And it's a little quieter right now, but we know it's still going on. And during that time, it was in a reserve called Puckatawagan, and a young person had taken his life. So they phoned our church and said, hey, would you come up and do some work with our youth? And so I went, and I just remember the feeling of hopelessness and the depth of their struggles, as opposed to in the South End where, kids are going through stuff and it's real, but it's just on a different level completely.
The needs are they're just as real, but they're just different, right?
Yeah, like
they can be different.
Yeah, like I don't ever discount someone's struggles because that's that person's struggles. But the person in Puckatawagan isn't really upset because they don't have the new iPhone. Like it's just a different struggle. I mean, that young person here is really struggling, but it's just not the same as like, should I continue on with my life? There's nothing here for me. There's no hope here. And so it really challenged me to work with people, and maybe even a specific people group that had maybe been marginalized and pushed aside and forgotten. And almost like a lot of Canadian society wishes they just would go away, and it's really hard to be that person who, when you see a large majority of your population look at you in your country, on your land, wishing you wouldn't be here, it just does something to them and us.
Are these stories that you've heard, like where people feel like they're not seen?
Oh, absolutely.
You hear these stories?
I hear those stories regularly. I see it regularly. Like sometimes it takes us a while to actually get a young person to look at us, because we're white. And that's just heartbreaking, because white, brown, black, red, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
They should feel respected, and
Absolutely.
they shouldn't expect to be talked down to just because of my color or their color.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's really challenging to
How do you kind of bring that? How do you build the bridge?
You number of different ways. So I've been there for a while. So people have stopped asking when I'm leaving. So that was the first thing that I really had to do, is I had to stay. A lot of people come and go. A lot of people, they'll show up for a little while, but then it gets hard, because it's hard to listen to those stories and see that on a regular basis. So now that I've stayed, I have some street cred, so that when I'm talking to young people, or they've seen me, they know me, they've seen me since they were little.
Yeah.
And they know that I actually care, and that I'm kind of sticking around, so I can get through some of the preliminary problems quicker, because I've just been there longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or someone that they know knows me.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, it takes time.
How do you build the bridge between, let's say, people like me that, I don't have the need for food? How do you build that bridge between somebody like me to understand that there are needs, there are people that don't live the way I live?
Sure. So do you mean like connecting sort of the north end to maybe our south end, something like that?
Yeah.
Well, I mainly do it with stories. So like when I had the opportunity to talk with you today, I was really excited, because it gives me another opportunity to just share some stories of what's happening in our city.
Yeah.
Because I really believe that people that go to Seoul or go to different churches in our city, I really believe they want to make a difference, and they want to do what's right, and they want to know. And if they don't know, then they can't react or be able to do something about something like that. So I bring stories, lots of stories. I hope I never make anyone feel awkward or bad. I just really want them to know that this is a real deal, and there's real problems in our city.
Is there any story that you could share with us tonight that was a story of hope? Maybe with somebody that was in your life that...
Well, we do get stories of hope, which are really, you think, wow, I can't believe that this is really happening. So one of our interns this year, even, her name's Brooke, and so we met her because, and I'll make this as short as I can. Yeah. Her aunt was dating a gang member in our community who had received Jesus, and her aunt, Brooke's mom, was in a fire, and so she got taken away and put into CFS. But the aunt was coming to our church because of her boyfriend, and so when we heard that happened, we actually reached out to Seoul, and together we got them some gift cards just to get them clothes and to get them some food. Yeah. And these kids wondered, like, why would they do that? Like, we don't know them, why would they do that? And so the aunt started bringing Brooke and her brother to church, and that was 3 years ago, and they were in care. And so she started to hear about God. She started to hear that God loved her. She started to hear about Jesus, who died for her, and she believed, and she accepted it. And immediately, she really gravitated towards that being a truth for her life. And so her aunt sort of slipped away from the man she was dating. And I noticed that Brooke was still there. And I came to her one Sunday. I'd seen her 3 times in a row. And she was bringing friends too, by the way. She was bringing all of her friends. And I was like, hey, how's it going? Like, it's so good to have you here. Did you move closer to our neighborhood or whatever? Because she was getting a ride from Transcona into the North End.
Wow.
And she said, no, I take a bus. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, I get on the bus. It takes me about an hour and a half, and I get here with my brother. But we know this is the only place that we find any hope at all and any help. And we know that God loves us, and we just need to learn more. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's unbelievable. So every year since then, Brooke is one of our interns in the summer. So as soon as she was old enough, she does children's ministry. She loves kids, and she works with kids, and she wants to be a children's pastor. And so we've just been on this journey of watching her grow. But if it wasn't for the love that we were meant to share with people, she never would have encountered like the loving hand of God in a real way, like in a tangible, here's a Walmart card, let's go get some clothes, let's get some food.
Yeah.
And we've seen her grow. And so this summer she's with us again, and she's going to Red River next year to get her social work degree, right?
Wow.
And so it's really exciting to watch her.
Great.
And there's ups and downs, and it's not perfect, but wow, when God gets a hold of someone's life, and when they want that too, it has to be, God will help us, but we need to also want to follow him and do what he wants us to do. So yeah.
Smudging and things like that, you do that, don't you,
I do,
with your church
Yep.
community? Can you talk about that for a bit?
Sure. I mean, that's a hot topic these days. We've done a lot of what we call contextualization. So we spend a lot of time contextualizing what do folks around us do before they met God, or before God reached out to them through us. So like one of the questions we always ask is, was God working here before we got here?
Yep.
And when you bring that to a community or to a church or to a gathering of people that are struggling with whether smudging should be or shouldn't be, we just simply ask, was God here? And if God was here, what would he be doing?
Yeah.
And then we look at our own texts and our own scripture, and then we see that smudging lines up very similar to what the Jewish priests were doing. And it really helps us understand that God was at work here, and this is the way that he was speaking to the people of this land. And that's how he had instructed them, very similar to the Jewish people, of how to connect with him and to be able to worship him in a really good, beautiful way. So smudging, if I'm to break it really down, is a physical way, a physical representation of all the things that we should all do when we're preparing to be with our Creator, with God, right? Preparing our minds, preparing our hearts, asking God to lead us with our hands and our feet, sending us where he wants us to go. And super important, being able to hear him and really doing the things that he wants us to do. And that's in essence what a smudge is. It's an opportunity for Christians to prepare themselves, because before Christianity got here, it was the way that an indigenous person would purify themselves, because they knew that they couldn't come before their Creator because they were sinful. They knew that. They were looking for an answer. They really were, just like we all are.
Right.
And so they were already doing this ritual of purifying themselves. And then they met Jesus, and they're like, wow, we don't have to do that anymore, but we can still prepare ourselves to be with God. And so it is a beautiful thing.
I love the way that you demonstrate vulnerability. I love that, because I think that to connect with people, even, it doesn't matter where we're at in life, I think to connect to people, we need to be vulnerable, and we need to find that vulnerable spot within us. And I think that there's a different type of connection that takes place when we can say, look, I don't have all the answers. I've made mistakes. It doesn't matter if I'm in the South End or the North End, because quite frankly, it doesn't matter where we live. Our problems are there. They might look different, but they're there. And right. I think to come like this into any kind of community, rather than like this, there's such a difference.
Absolutely.
And I really see that with you. I see how you are in that community. I mean, I mean, Paul, I've met people that know you. Okay? And you've impacted their lives. And it's kind of cool because they talk to me about Paul and they have no idea that I know Paul. And so that tells me that you're making an impact in so many people's lives. And I believe, and I have to say that I really do, I believe it's because you come from a place of this. Like, does that make sense to you when I say that?
Absolutely.
Place of vulnerability and saying, look, I'm no better than you. My problems, some of them are the same, have been the same, some of them are different, but it doesn't matter. As people, we all have problems and go through things at some point in time in life. I don't know anybody that's exempt from not having problems. I don't know about you, but
I don't either.
yeah.
I don't either.
And so I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming here and actually sharing what I feel is your heart. Like, I feel like you've just shared, and I'm sure we could go on probably for a really long time because I just knowing you the way I do, there's so many things that you are doing that are making an impact in your community. And I thank you for that. I thank you for letting Soul, and I know so many other churches, not just Soul, know what some of the needs are so that people can come on board, like you said. Without knowing, we're oblivious. But as we know, I also think that we're responsible.
Yes, we are.
Right?
We're not responsible until we know.
Exactly, and that changes everything. As soon as we
does.
know what's going on, we are responsible, I believe, as Christ followers, to then follow through
I agree.
and help out. So thanks for coming. I just really
for having
appreciate
me.
it so
It's
much.
been awesome.
And is there anything that you want to leave with anybody who's watching tonight?
So thanks for giving me the opportunity. And I just encourage, folks, if you're listening to this and you're hearing it and you're like, wow, that's great for you, Paul, but that's not for me. I would say the opposite, in fact. I'd say it's for everybody. And we can all do that with our neighbors, with our friends, with our families. This is a really good way to put it, like you put it. Just come like this.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. It doesn't matter what area we live in the city. It doesn't matter what province we live in. It doesn't matter what country we live in. Each one of us want to be significant. And each one of us want to feel loved and have connection. And so if you're feeling that maybe you're not feeling connected tonight, maybe you're not feeling loved, maybe you don't know what your significance is, I want to just encourage you to reach out and to give us a call, connect with us at Soul Sanctuary. We'd love to hear from you. We'd like to listen and to hear your story.